The hangar was packed wall to wall with uniforms. Rows of soldiers stood at attention under the high steel rafters, metals gleaming in the afternoon light that filtered through the open bay doors. The air buzzed with chatter, pride, and tension, the kind that only comes when ranks are changing and futures are being decided. Captain Elena Torres adjusted her sleeve quietly, eyes fixed forward. Today was supposed to be one of the proudest days of her life. 10 years of service, 2 tours overseas, 1 commendation for valor under fire. Her name had been whispered around base for months as the next officer in line for promotion to major. But as she stood there in crisp uniform, spine straight, she could already sense the storm coming. Across the room, Major Daniel Royce, her former commanding officer, watched her with an expression that wasn't pride. It was something darker. He had never forgiven her for the day she reported his misconduct 2 years ago. The military had quietly reassigned him, swept it under the rug as they often did, but everyone on base knew who had spoken up. Elena, the one who didn't back down. Now, the two of them stood in the same hangar, under the same flag, with the same crowd watching. And he was about to learn that some ranks aren't worn on the shoulder, they're earned in the soul. The ceremony began with precision. Names were called, medals pinned, applause measured and respectful. Elena's heart thudded beneath her jacket as the master sergeant read her name over the loudspeaker. Captain Elena Torres, commended for exemplary leadership under combat conditions, promoted to the rank of Major, United States Army. Applause erupted. She stepped forward, but as she approached the stage, Major Royce moved too. He was standing just off to the side, positioned to congratulate the officers under his former command. The moment their eyes met, she saw it, that flicker of arrogance, of resentment he never learned to hide. He extended his hand. For a second, she hesitated. The cameras were flashing, the entire base watching. It wasn't the time or place for confrontation. But when she took his hand, his fingers tightened, not in respect, but in challenge. And then, quietly but unmistakably, he muttered, "You didn't deserve this. Not after what you did to me." Elena's jaw clenched. She tried to pull her hand back, but he held firm. And then, something happened that made the room gasp. He raised his other hand. It was only an instant, a flicker of motion, but it was enough. Every soldier in the room froze. The air crackled with disbelief. Elena didn't flinch. She didn't move back. Her voice, calm and steady, carried across the silence like a blade through glass. "Major," she said softly, "think very carefully about your next move." The base commander, Colonel Reeves, saw it all. The instant his chair scraped back, the tension broke. "Major Royce," Reeves' voice thundered, "stand down." Royce froze mid-motion, realizing too late what he'd done. The murmur of hundreds of voices swelled like a rising tide. The colonel strode forward, fury in every step. But before Reeves could speak, Elena lifted a hand. "Sir," she said, "permission to address it myself." The colonel hesitated, then nodded. "You have the floor, Major." "Major." The word echoed through the hangar like justice. Elena turned toward Royce. Her posture was perfect, her tone composed, but her eyes burned with something fierce and unbreakable. "You think this ceremony is about rank," she said quietly, her voice carrying to every corner of the hangar. "About who salutes who. But rank doesn't mean anything if you can't lead with integrity." Royce's face reddened. "You're out of line, Torres." "No, sir," she said, stepping closer, eyes unwavering. "For years, women like me have been told to stay silent. To smile. To move on. You used your position to humiliate and intimidate. And when I spoke up, you called it betrayal." A wave of whispers swept through the ranks. She took one more step forward, closing the distance. "This uniform doesn't protect cowards. It honors those who serve with honor. That's something you threw away long before today." Royce opened his mouth, but before he could speak, Colonel Reeves' voice cut through the silence like thunder. "Major Torres," he said, stepping to her side, eyes never leaving Royce. "You're absolutely right." He turned toward the crowd. "Let it be clear to everyone in this room, Major Torres doesn't just outrank this man in title. She outranks him in courage, integrity, and respect. She outranks everyone here in what truly matters." The hangar erupted in applause. It wasn't the polite kind, either, it was loud, raw, and real. Soldiers stood taller. Officers who'd never met her clapped until their palms hurt. Even the master sergeant, a man known for his stoicism, nodded once, eyes shining. Royce's face drained of color. Security quietly moved him aside. But Elena didn't gloat. She simply turned, saluted the colonel, and said, "Thank you, sir." When the ceremony ended, Elena slipped outside. The noise of applause faded behind her as she walked into the golden light of late afternoon. The air smelled of jet fuel and sea wind. She took a long breath and finally let herself feel it. Not triumph, not vindication, but peace. Someone approached quietly behind her. Major Torres. She turned. It was Lieutenant Grace Carter, one of the youngest soldiers under her old unit. Grace looked nervous, clutching her cap in both hands. "I just wanted to say, thank you," she said softly. "For standing up for yourself. For all of us. I was in that unit too. I never said anything, but," she hesitated. "You gave me courage today." Elena smiled gently. "You don't owe me anything, Lieutenant. Just promise me you'll stand up for the next person who needs it." Grace nodded, tears brimming. "Yes, ma'am." Back in the hangar, Colonel Reeves was still fielding questions from press and personnel. When he finally spotted Elena by the runway, he excused himself and walked over. "I owe you an apology," he said quietly. "We should have handled Royce years ago." Elena shook her head. "You did today, sir. That's what matters." He gave a small nod. "We're making it right. His record will reflect what happened here." Elena's gaze drifted toward the horizon where a C-17 cargo plane rumbled into the sky. "Sir," she said, "the record's not what matters. The people are." He studied her for a moment, then smiled faintly. "You're going to do great things, Major." That night, the base mess hall was louder than usual. Laughter, clinking glasses, the sounds of camaraderie that often followed promotion days. But when Elena walked in, conversation stopped for half a heartbeat, then applause filled the room again. She shook her head with a smile, embarrassed, but her fellow soldiers insisted she take a seat at the center table. Someone pushed a cup of coffee in front of her. Another handed her a challenge coin engraved with the words "Honor Before Glory." And for the first time since she had worn the uniform, she felt something deeper than pride. She felt belonging. Hours later, as the celebrations faded, Elena walked back across the quiet tarmac alone. The moonlight glimmered on the rows of parked aircraft. Her shadow stretched long and steady beside her. A voice called out softly behind her. "Major Torres." It was Colonel Reeves again, holding a small box. "Something for you." Inside was a silver insignia pin, the kind reserved for officers who had not only served but changed the culture of their units for the better. She looked up, surprised. "Sir, I don't." "You earned it," he said. "You didn't just prove yourself today. You reminded everyone what leadership really looks like." He paused, his tone softening. "And maybe reminded a few of us why we joined in the first place." She smiled, eyes glistening. "Thank you, sir." He returned her salute, then walked away into the night. The next morning, word had spread far beyond the base. Someone had recorded the ceremony, the moment when she faced him down, the colonel's declaration echoing through the hangar, "She outranks everyone here." It went viral. Across the country, across the ocean, people watched and shared the video, not as gossip, but as something uplifting. Veterans wrote messages of support. Young cadets quoted her words in training forums. Even those who had never worn a uniform understood the message: real rank isn't about power. It's about integrity, respect, and courage. Elena didn't seek the attention. She stayed focused on her unit, her work, her people. But she couldn't deny that something had changed. Not just for her, but for everyone who had been told to keep their heads down. A few weeks later, Elena received an unexpected invitation. The Pentagon. When she arrived, she found herself sitting across from General Mitchell, a legend in the armed forces. "Major Torres," he said, flipping through her file, "you've become quite the name in the last month." That video struck a chord. "We've had discussions at the highest levels about leadership standards, ethics, and mentorship." Elena sat quietly, unsure where this was going. He smiled faintly. "We need officers like you at the academy. To teach." Her eyes widened. "Sir, I teach." "Yes," he said firmly. Leadership isn't taught in classrooms, it's shown in moments like the one you gave us all. You'd be leading the next generation of officers. For the first time in a long time, she felt that same rush she had when she first put on the uniform. Not adrenaline, not fear, purpose. I'd be honored, sir. A year later, at the U.S. Military Academy, a new group of cadets sat in perfect formation as Major Torres stepped to the podium. Behind her, the same flag from that hangar ceremony hung proudly. She scanned the young faces before her, nervous, eager, idealistic, and began. Leadership, she said, her voice steady, isn't about the bars on your collar or the stripes on your sleeve. It's about the weight you carry when no one's watching. It's about how you treat the people who can't fight back. The room was silent, every word sinking deep. She continued, one day, you'll be in a room where someone crosses a line. And you'll have a choice, to stay silent, or to stand up. If you remember nothing else from my time with you, remember this: courage isn't loud. It's steady. It's the hand that doesn't shake when the world is watching. When she finished, the hall erupted in applause. Cadets stood, saluting her not out of obligation, but out of admiration. As she stepped down, one young cadet caught her eye and whispered, "Ma'am, I saw your video. That's why I joined." Elena paused, then smiled softly. "Then make sure someone joins because of you someday." That evening, she sat alone in her office overlooking the training field, the sun setting behind the mountains. On her desk, beside her silver insignia, sat a photo of her old unit, laughing, younger, hopeful. She touched the frame gently. There were still battles to fight, but this time, they were different. Quieter, deeper, the kind that shaped not wars, but people. And as the last light faded, she realized something she had never said out loud. She didn't need anyone to tell her she outranked everyone there. She just needed to live like it, every single day.